It's not that old. I'm pretty sure I started it August last year. So when I initially started,
Ooh,
yeah, it's
birthday
still
celebration
going.
is
And I
honor.
actually, yeah, and the really cool thing is, when I started it, I was releasing episodes every 2 weeks because I was just honestly reaching out to friends and saying, hey, I would love to interview you because I really love, your healing practice and that sort of thing. And I get resistance or I get like, oh, yeah, I love that. And I wasn't scared. Like I just meet random people and go, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? It didn't bother me. I was so unattached to it. And then I joined a platform called
In today's episode of My Podcast Story, we have Catherine Crestani, leadership coach, author, and speaker who's making waves in the world of intuitive healing. Catherine is the host of the podcast Willow Healing Matters, where she engages with guests from around the globe to explore their unique healing journeys. With a rich background in allied health and a passion for empowering others, Catherine transitioned from running successful businesses to guiding individuals on their spiritual paths. Her latest book, Pillars for Life, offers invaluable insights for those in spiritual business realms, showcasing her unique ability to channel inspiration through her writing. Catherine is here to share her inspiring journey on how she built her show from the ground up and the profound impact she aims to create in the lives of others. Tell me, what's your name? What's the name of your podcast, and what's your podcast about?
Yeah, so my name's Catherine Crestani, and my podcast is called Willow Healing Matters. And it's about, I interviewed guests from around the world about this healing journey as well as alternative healing practices and therapies. So giving people insight into ways that are outside the normal allopathic system that we've been taught about.
Can you make that make sense? Like, I understand what you're saying, but
I
I'm like,
can.
is she speaking English or something else?
So basically, I interview like people from all walks of life. So I've got ones who are, like might be like my first interview I did was with a really good friend of mine because she's really passionate about food and she studied with some people in India and learnt how to put intention and love in food. So then when you eat it, like your soul's been really nourished by food. But then I have the other extreme where I interview professionals like such as functional medicine practitioners, acupuncturists, or even spiritual healers. And they provide insight into different ways that you can go about your healing journey, whether it is from physical pain, emotional pain, or you're just curious and going on a spiritual faith journey, however that might look. So often we get taught that if you have a headache, you go take a tablet. But it's about, well, hang on, why do I keep having those headaches? And why does this certain situation keep reoccurring in my life? And is there another way? So the people that I interview are from literally all over the world, and they all have some sort of journey or story to share about how they healed themselves normally, and then how they found themselves into this different form of profession or this different way of working with people so that they can too enjoy life again and not be riddled by pain, by mental health and those sort of things as well.
Why did you and you? What is the real reason? Like the real of the real reason, like the core of the reason why you started your
Why I
podcast?
started.
Yeah, not the
Well,
superficial ones.
yeah. So first of all, I was like, I really want to start a podcast. This is the thought that came in my head. And at the time, I was working a lot on being seen in the world and being heard again. So I really wanted to get my voice out there. And I love learning. I love learning from other people. I feel we all have a beautiful, unique story that we need to share. And whenever I talk to someone on the podcast or just in life, I always learn something from them. So that was kind of the selfish or selfful reasons why I started it. But then the more I got into the podcast and the more I evolved as a person, the reason behind it changed as well. So now when I meet with people, I actually think constantly in my head, how can I work with these people going forward? How can I collaborate with them? How can I create a network? How can I connect them with somebody if it's not myself? Because I always feel that people are put in front of us for a reason. And, it's kind of my role, I feel, is now to create those connections and collaborations. So, for example, I'm finishing off some books and I've met some amazing people and also been on their podcast as well, where I know that I can come back and talk about my book once it's ready and published and I can share it with the world that way. But also people that I can then collaborate with and who have their own book that's in a line, and maybe we can do book deals and things like that. So, it's kind of evolved from I need to get my voice out in the world to, wow, how can I collaborate and keep connecting with people around the world at this global level to elevate myself and my business as well as theirs and to get them connected with the right people.
How old is your podcast?
It's not that old. I'm pretty sure I started it August last year.
Oh,
When I initially started. Yeah,
birthday
it's still
celebration.
going. And I actually, yeah, and the really cool thing is, when I started it, I was releasing episodes every 2 weeks because I was just honestly reaching out to friends and saying, hey, I would love to interview you because I really love, your healing practice and that sort of thing. And I get resistance or I get like, oh yeah, I love that. And I wasn't scared. Like I'd just meet random people and go, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? It didn't bother me. I was so unattached to it. And then I joined a platform called Podmatch and I never expected my life to be flipped upside down because all of a sudden my day was filled with back-to-back podcast interviews of people that wanted to be on my podcast. I didn't even pitch to half the people. They just came and say, hey, like your podcast sounds really good and can we come on? And I had to up to every week and then that wasn't enough. So now I have episodes going out twice a week and I've actually got episodes already recorded and ready to go out till September.
Wow.
So it's amazing. Yeah. So it's amazing. And part of me is like, oh, do I up the release again? But at the same time, I don't want that pressure. So I rather just leave the organicness of it. But now it's like, okay, this is becoming a bigger thing. And maybe I actually need to look into a platform like Riverside or something like that, rather than just doing my back end stuff through GarageBand. And because that's how I started.
Wow.
I just started with I didn't have much money and I just did what I had to do.
Yeah. You started with what you had available. Yeah. I like
Exactly.
that approach.
Exactly.
Wow. Before I even start asking the questions regarding the podcast and all that, I need to ask this my own personal question. This birthday that is coming up for this podcast, where are we celebrating it? Is it in France? Is it in Paris? Where would the birthday be happening?
Where am I?
No,
I am
not
currently.
you, not you.
Oh no, where?
Not you. The
No, you.
birthday celebration
Who?
for the podcast that is happening in August.
I don't know.
Where are we going to celebrate it?
I don't know.
Please.
I don't know. All right, you planted a seed now. You planted a seed.
Okay. Because I won't want to hear a situation that you celebrated the birthday for the podcast and at least there should be cake, a lot of eating and drinking because that's what I care about. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Well, hopefully, maybe it'll be in Byron Bay. Who knows? In Australia, possibly, which is like a really beachy, hippie, happy area. So maybe that's where I'm hoping to be by that point. So we'll just see. I'm just trusting where the world's going to take me because my life already this year has been very different.
Please, during the celebration, I don't like too much talk. They should just start from desserts to different recipes. Just start sharing the different food. Yeah.
I love
congratulations ahead of time, though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think so far that I've been interviewing guests, your show is kind of the youngest so far. Most of them they've had like their show
really?
10 years, some 15 years, and I'm like, wow.
Well, hopefully it keeps going on that long because, I'm really passionate about speaking and I'm really passionate about, sharing like people's truths and sharing. And there's just so many people in the world. And it's funny because I can interview 3 people who do emotional freedom technique, which is like the tapping thing, if you've ever seen people doing that. And they have completely different stories and completely different points of view of how they work with it. And I think that's the beauty of, getting to know people at that, just a conversation level, but actually understanding the motivations and what they want to do and share with the world, because it's through that they get to share their uniqueness. And that's why just because you've met, one practitioner, like one Reiki practitioner, doesn't mean you've met all of them. Or just because you've met one life coach doesn't mean you've met all of them. Because in the end, everyone has their own unique life experiences and their reasons behind why they're doing. So you're always going to get a unique approach and a unique story that people want to share.
Yeah. Quickly, is your podcast audio only or audio and video?
Yeah. So currently it's audio only, although I feel at some point it's going to end up having a video as well. But I always, when I interview guests, I still have Zoom up because it's just so nice to see people's faces, because when you're talking to a blank screen, it just feels really, you lose the human connection. So it's really nice to have that, face to face. And, as much as technology connects us, if you just have a blank screen, I find it's just really off-putting. I've done those interviews. It's really interesting. And especially if you have tech difficulties. So my headphones failed. My brand new headphones, they just failed and stopped working. And I had no idea that the person couldn't hear me because I couldn't see them. So I wasn't getting that visual feedback. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there. Like previously, I had really serious internet connection issues that the video bandwidth would not allow me to even record an episode. So I had to like switch to audio only. So now I'm switching to video because I find that doing video, apart from the fact that it's when you're having a conversation on video, it's different from when you're having a conversation on audio. Because now when you're doing audio, you just have to focus on listening. But now when you're doing video, you have to like be present. You have to look, take note of the eye movement, what the guest is doing, where they're looking at, if they're smiling, if they're happy, and a lot of subtle body movements that you're taking note of. And that's it so far. So what a lot of persons they say a lot of the projection, the trends that video is the next thing. So when do you plan to like integrate it into your marketing plan?
When I bother to sit down and actually start comparing different recording programs. Essentially, it's like, and it's funny because this morning I was doing a lot of interviews back to back, and my normal, because I'm still using GarageBand, and I was looking at moving to Audacity, and everything just started glitching. And I was like, okay, I'm taking it as a sign that I really need to actually put aside some time and look into this and research it and see what sits with me and what fits with me, because there's so many different platforms floating around and everyone has their pros and cons and things. So I really need to sit with and see. So soon, I would say maybe in the next couple of weeks, I'm actually going to sit down and do that, because I feel that that's actually an important next step. And also, the possibility of, I've started to have people reach out and talk about, sponsoring opportunities or coming onto people's networks. And so I'm like, all right, my game needs to level up a little bit because all of a sudden, there's this higher level of expectations and there's this higher level of what people want. So I need to actually sit back and go, all right, what do I want to do? I still want to keep the rawness in it because I love it. I barely edit at all, because I like having the human aspect in the interview. I don't like really, really clean interviews. I like this format, like we're just having a chat and asking questions and things like that. So it's just going to be what I sit with and see what works, because I have a love-hate relationship with Riverside, which is what we're on right now, because sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't.
I would love to hear those instances when it did not work.
When it didn't work. Yeah. Oh, because where I live, we have satellite internet. And when the satellite drops out, it's really dodgy quality and it will just it'll keep dropping and it can't handle the upload. And, and then I've also had incidences where I didn't know that you have to leave the browser open until it finishes uploading, and I had no idea. And then I had the app actually installed on my Mac, and then the app updated and then it just stopped working. So I had to download the browser to go it through. So, there's these little glitches, and the person I said to, I was running a little bit late for this interview, and I said, I'm so sorry. I was all prepared. I had the app and everything. And she goes, yeah, it happens. And I was like, okay, so, I guess it's just, but that's with everything, right? There's always the goods and the bads, and you just got to weigh up what works for you the most and what aligns for you going forward and what you want to achieve.
I mean, all these things you mentioned. The funny thing is that almost everything you mentioned, these were some of the considerations I had when I wanted to choose a platform to use. And one of the things I asked myself was, is this a peculiar problem? And I was like, no, a lot of persons have this problem before, where they have internet issues and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, how did they deal with that? How did they solve that? The sweet thing about Riverside, and I'm of course I'm not an ambassador for Riverside. It's something I use, but the reason I love Riverside is no matter what happens, right? They record, even if the internet is really terrible and maybe on your screen now, my face is choppy, it's not top quality. At the end of the day, when I go to edit the videos I will see will be high quality, top quality, irrespective of what the internet condition was. And then the other thing I have noticed that I think recently one of my guest video that I was uploading failed, and I was kind of like panicking. Later on, I went to the dashboard and I realized that we are talking about sometimes people forget to upload their recording. For those instances, while we're recording, Riverside is actually keeping a cloud backup, right? So that it will not be as high quality as the one that is uploaded from the computer, but it will be good enough for you, such that in instances when everything fails, you can use it to like edit and do everything you want to do.
Yeah, which it definitely resonating. So, because just the ease of it. So I understand that completely, because, you can't always control, the glitchiness and what kind of comes through as well, because, it's just life. It's the life we live in. You don't know, especially having satellite internet. If we have like incredibly cloudy day, then it will drop out. So it's just, it is what it is. You just learn to work around it.
Yeah, that's true. Recently, I've been thinking, I was like, if someone could come up with an app, kind of like a weather app, right, that connects to your calendar, your scheduling calendar, such that when guests try to book a time with you, if that day is going to be cloudy, it won't allow them to book a time, such that you don't end up recording. Like I had that thought. I don't know if somebody is a developer and they develop that, and I would love to use that app. It will be fantastic. Just integrate it with the calendar.
But the weather's so unpredictable. You can't rely on that,
Yeah, I mean, usually most of the times those weather forecasts, most of the time it works.
Ours are never true. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here in Sydney, they seem to be like the most accurate is an hour before.
Oh, I wish there was a way to like tell what the weather will be like 8 days from now. That would have been nice.
Well, you can just ask God for that one, I think. Hey, can I have that?
Wow. I mean, yeah, I think in that instance, it will be like satellite internet. When it works, it's great, but when it's not working, it's really, really terrible. And that's just, it's like two extremes.
Agreed.
If it's very good or it's very terrible, like you can't like say, oh, let me manage and stay at the middle. Let's just manage small. And that's really bad.
Exactly.
If there was like a way, I don't know this time, if there was like a way for you to like get maybe fiber connection or cable connection, that would be nice for like backup.
Yeah, well, it's meant to be happening where we live, but then we're also in the process of moving, so we'll just see what happens then. So it's like, we're weighing everything up, but at the same time, it's been very good apart from, occasional incredibly cloudy days. And the cool thing is that it actually moves itself. It's really freaky, actually, because depending where the weather is or if it can find a better connection, you just see it go and moving to where it can find it. Yeah. Anyway, just clever little satellite.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I think that these are one of the problems of being a podcaster. Usually for me, because I've had this problem, and I sat down and I started thinking and asking myself, what could I possibly do? And I noticed that all these problems would be completely eliminated if I do solo episodes, because all I will need to do is just record my video locally with my camera. There will be nothing to do with internet connection, and I'll just do my thing. And yeah, but when you start having guests, it brings a lot of logistics that you cannot predict. Sometimes you show up, or you're ready for an interview, the guest doesn't show up. Like they tell you like 5 minutes to the time, and you end up having 1 hour that you've booked for interview, and you're like, well, I was going to do this interview, and but you just have to like, sit it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so these are some of the things
This
nobody talks
this
about.
happened to me. Yeah, this happened to me this week. So just this morning, I had someone completely forget, and it wasn't on her schedule. Like she actually took a photo, and she goes, "I don't know what happened because because her personal assistant arranged it and everything." And I was like, "That's okay. I did get up really early, but that's all right." But then the other day, I think I was running about 15 minutes late because I just had back to back, and I actually messaged the person, but they didn't get my message. So then by the time I got to my email, because I'd finished with the one before and jumped on, and then she just didn't wait. And I was like, I get that too. So I'm the person that will wait like 15 to 20 minutes depending on how long the interview is, but I get life happens, but sometimes when you just don't show up, and don't take accountability for that, I feel that's a bit of a reflection of you as well, because, life does happen. And if you genuinely forget or something happens, take responsibility for that and go, yeah, I'm really sorry. Or rather than ghosting. That's
Yeah.
more
So,
annoying, I
sometimes you
find.
don't hear. For me, in such scenario, I'm kind of like scared for them. I'm like, oh, I hope they're safe. I hope everything is fine. I hope nothing
Same.
terrible happened, because I'm like, they didn't show up, they didn't message me, and sometimes I reach out to them, they didn't even respond. I'm like, hope everything is fine. That's what I'm thinking of. Not necessarily. I'm not even thinking about the interview. I'm like, I hope they're doing well, because this one is not responding. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I think sometimes too, I'm like, I get it, like life happens, or, I've had where, my alarm, I forgot to set an alarm, and then I got the reminder, my normal alarm went off. And then I looked at my phone, and it's like, hey, this interview started at 5 a.m. and it was 5:05 a.m. And I'm like, and luckily,
Uh,
because we work in our house, within 5 minutes, I'm like dressed in front of the podcasting, logging in. And I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much for waiting. And the funny thing was that he forgot a couple days before because his schedule had a bit of a glip because of the time differences, because Australia were ahead. And so I said, okay, I'll see you on Friday or Wednesday or whatever. And he's like, oh, but on my schedule it says Tuesday. It must be wrong. It must be Wednesday. And so, that's why we had this miscommunication. But then I was so grateful that my alarm still went off, my normal alarm, and that I made it to that interview, because now we collaborate so much together and send each other guests, and we, recommend each other for other people's shows. If we meet people that, interview us and go, hey, this guest might be really good for your show, and that sort of thing. But if I hadn't shown up and my alarm hadn't gone
yeah.
off, and, I hadn't just gone, I can make this happen, it wouldn't have happened. So, and I am a believer that if you're meant to meet somebody and connect with them, you will. And if they forget or it doesn't happen, then maybe it's just not meant to happen.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do you use for scheduling or booking time? Because most of the problems you mentioned, these are things that I've never encountered, because I have like a software that does all
Oh.
those things for me.
Yeah, so I use Calendly currently to book, because I use that for booking, because I like that it collects payments. So I use that I was already using that for my clients, when their clients book in, or
Yeah.
when they book in coaching sessions with me and that sort of thing. So I just added the podcast element to it, so then I can get the questionnaire and get the background filled in, just that release form at the same time. But the good thing that I like about Podmatch is that I could just put it all in there and it does it. The tricky thing is it doesn't always sync beautifully to your calendar. So
Yeah.
then I have to sit there
Yeah.
and make sure that I haven't double booked things, which does happen. And even sometimes on Calendly, this is just technical fun things, but sometimes on Calendly, even when I block things out, it will still allow people to book in there. So this poor
Wow.
man, he
Wow.
booked in with me, and I said, look, and because I ended up making two different schedules, so I figured out why it happened. But I made a different schedule for when I would offer podcast interviews, because it was getting overwhelming till I couldn't even see clients that I get paid for. So I was like, okay, I actually need to see I need to feed my family too, you know. So, I ended up making 2 schedules, but what had happened was it only blocked it out on my normal schedule. It didn't block it out on my podcast schedule. So this poor man, I messaged him and I said, I'm so sorry. I can't actually do our podcast interview because I will be in transit, like traveling. There is no way I can actually interview you. I don't mind being scrappy. I have interviewed people in hotel rooms and things. It doesn't bother me, but I can't do it while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And he's like, cool, no worries. So then he rescheduled. And then again, it was the breakdown in time zones because when he thought it wasn't when I had it booked in. So then we had to reschedule again. And I finally get to interview him, I think, tomorrow or maybe early next week. But it was just, time zones do my head in too. So I'm very grateful that Calendly automatically converts people's time zones, because when I have to go on booking schedules and they don't do that, it drives me nuts, because especially, I know America has multiple time zones, but, Australia does too. So it's just like, trying to get your head around it. And yeah, I don't even try. I just use time converters now and just keep trying to find one that I like. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't.
Yeah, like, wow, that's a strange problem I've never encountered. Wow. Because usually what I do is I just send them the Calendly, not Calendly, my bookings software link, and it updates everything, shows them the time in their time zone, and then it reflects it in my own time zone. And the sweet thing about the software I use is that once they book a time, right, it will send them an email. When they accept the email, like they accept the event, it will add it to their calendar. So it will automatically block it in their calendar and then also add it to my calendar. So everything is perfectly synced, and it's connected. Like my calendar is connected to the software. And if I booked, let's say I book a time, it doesn't go add stuff like, wow, I'm like, I used to, wow, these are problems that I've never really experienced. Oh, well, it's all right. The software seems to be working for me, so I'm glad. I'm surprised. Calendly used to be,
take it, just roll with it.
Calendly used to be like the OG of booking, and now I'm hearing these things. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, they keep doing updates too, and I'm like, I like it for the moment. I feel long term something else might come up, but it's they keep doing updates. So even they did an update, and I was looking at it on my phone because I pull up the person's bio who I'm interviewing and introduce them that way. And I couldn't find the bio because what they had done was created 2 tabs. So one's the actual booking information and the other one's their answer to the questions. But I didn't know that. So I'm there going, this app, this is not helpful. Like I have to pull it up on the computer and then I'm jumping screens and that sort of thing. And then I realized it was just a different tab and it actually does work better. But it was just, just because they had that update and that change and you didn't know that change was there. The same with the calendar, they updated it so you could have multiple calendars and things, but I didn't realize when you put availability, and there might be a function that you can put it across all calendars. But again, I'm just like, I'll just figure it out,
Yeah.
Just see how it goes.
Yeah, because as much as possible, I try to ask myself, how can I use software to reduce all those unnecessary back and forths? Because you have limited time. I don't want to start spending time trying to coordinate with guests and all that. So once I use the software, everything is set up. If they have to reschedule, they reschedule everything. It sends an email to both parties, and everything's well coordinated. So that's like the whole end. And I use Riverside, and so far Riverside has been working well. And that's it basically. Okay, you're not doing video, and if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with sharing, and I don't want to put you on the spot, if you're not comfortable with sharing, just let me know, and I'll skip the question and move on to something else. I'd love to know what's your download numbers like.
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know how to look that up. How do you look that up? Look at you. I don't care. It's so funny because I'm so detached from it. This is purely a passion project and it just keeps evolving. And I know I have to start maybe looking at, numbers if I want to get like sponsors or branding, like opportunities and things like that. But it's just so off my radar because this is just a and I release it through Substack. So I get some
Wow,
numbers, but I
Substack.
don't even know what they
Wow.
mean. Yeah. So the reason I ended up on Substack is because I write a lot, and I was writing a lot, and I wanted a newsletter platform that I could just write and schedule and forget, like set and forget. I'm such a set and forget person. I love it. So I was writing a lot, and then it had a podcast function. So the thing I liked about it was I could upload my podcast, and then I could set it to come out whenever I wanted to, and then it automatically distributed to anywhere I wanted it to go. So it can go to Spotify, it can go to Apple Podcasts and all that sort of thing. So that's why I ended up going through Substack. But the thing is, I don't always get all the numbers that come back from Spotify, or I don't, because so many people are like, oh, I heard that podcast on Spotify. And I'm like, oh, well, this is saying people are only listening through the app. So it's not 100% accurate. But I think from last thing I looked, it was like there was like 1,000 downloads or something like that. So I don't know if that's an episode or if that's like the actual thing. I have no idea.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah.
The reason
I
asked the question, isn't necessary to say, because it's not because I'm number crazy or something like that. It's simply because, a lot of people who are starting their podcast and things like that, they don't know what it means. They don't know they kind of like, podcasting is kind of like a secret thing. If a podcast host doesn't share the numbers with you, there's no way you probably find out or know what's going on. You get, so they don't. People who are just starting the podcast, they don't know what they're like. I'm getting 10 downloads. Is that a good thing? Am I doing well? Is it? They don't really know what the standard is. And the people that talk about their podcast numbers are people that are getting like millions of downloads. And so they paint a wrong picture. I'm like, the actual professional podcasters that have been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 20 years. Some of them, they get 10,000 downloads per month, and they are crushing it, and they are like known in their field, their industry. And so that's why I try to like get podcasters to like share their numbers so that people know that, okay, yeah, to have a professional podcast, you don't have to be getting thousands of downloads or millions of downloads. If you have people showing up consistently for you, you do have a show, and that's what's important.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is, so many people will say, hey, I listened to this episode, or hey, I listened to this episode. And I'm like, oh, did you? I was like, I have no idea. I'm like, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Please spread the word, and that's what, and it's funny because my cousin started to listen to it. She's like, wow, I really like these interviews. She's like, I told all my friends about it. I said, thank you. Because, that's what really you want to happen. You want people to find a way to get to you and find a way to connect with you, and, I only got back on social media not very long ago, I have to say, on Instagram. And so I've been using Instagram because I interview guests, and then we tag people, we collaborate, and then we put it out in the world that way too. So, I feel like if you have a podcast, you need to talk about it, because otherwise people aren't going to know about it.
Yeah.
So it's all good, you do all this work and record it, but you still need to tell people. And people are like, oh, and I just tell anybody, like, hey, what do you like to do? I'm like, oh, I like my podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, go check out Willow Healing Matters. And, and just talking about it and having that conversation. But you're starting to be noticed when all of a sudden you're getting all these weird salesy emails. So, hey, did you know your podcast is ranking at this level in Ireland?
Wow.
Click here and we can give you all the data. And I'm like, and I just go, wow, thank you for noticing me.
I thought that was the only
So then
one.
I got one the other. No, apparently I'm like #1 in spiritual and religion in Ireland or something like that. I don't know how to verify that or if it's even true. That's what I mean. I don't even know. I was just like, okay. That's like, and, and then, I got this email saying like, then someone interviewed me, and they said, hey, do you want to be connected with this network I'm part of, and you can possibly do sponsors. So now I'm like, okay, yeah, let's look down that path. That sounds really cool. And then I've got these emails coming in from people that are like, hey, would you like to have my client as a guest on your show? I'm like, sure. They want to interview. If I've somehow fallen into your radar and that you found that, I'm trusting that's a reason behind that. And I'm going to say yes, because I love doing it. And, they might have to wait a little bit to get their episode out there. But I'm also very like, if someone has like they're recording the episode for, I don't know, a release date. So for example, I was interviewing an actor and I was like, do you need to come out, to help promote your movie? And he's like, nah, whenever. And then we ended up making it teed up perfectly with his birthday. So we made it come out on his birthday, which actually keeps happening. I've interviewed quite a handful of guests and I'm like, oh, this is the date's coming out. They're like, that's my birthday.
Wow.
And I was like, happy birthday? Yeah. I think it's happened 4 or 5 times now, which is really freaky. But at the same time, it's really cool. So, I feel that if people are telling you, hey, I listened to your episode, that's really nice. If people are starting to drop emails into your inbox because they're paying attention to your podcast, then clearly you're doing something right. Like if you're falling on these radars of people who are measuring statistics, then and using it as a marketing thing, but at the same time it's like, okay, thanks, clearly I'm doing something right if it's ranking or if you can find it.
Wow. You started your podcast now. The question I want to ask now is, I believe that the things that we work on, they work on us back. And you said that your podcast is a passion project. And how has your podcast kind of like, affected your life, improved, I'd love to know about that.
Well, it definitely helped me not be afraid to ask the questions and say the things that I wanted to say, and serves my curiosity too, because when you're interviewing someone, you can actually be genuinely curious and ask the questions that everyone's probably thinking anyway. So, it definitely boosted my confidence. It boosted my ability to, be comfortable with asking people. And even some of the people that I end up interviewing, I'm just sitting there like awestruck that these people are these high caliber are sitting across from me and have fallen into my field, right? And you're like, this is amazing. I'm so grateful for whatever reason. So, I interviewed a guest the other week and I was messaging my coach and I said, you'll never guess what happened. I said, I just interviewed someone that was actually trained under Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he's like, what? Wow. And I was like, I don't even know how they came here, and she was amazing and she was so like knowledgeable and lovely. And then I interviewed this person who's like the head of Ayurvedic medicine teaching. And I was like, again, I know how they kind of came to me because it was through Podmatch or whatever, but they said yes to being on my podcast. And I guess the biggest thing it's learned is to have the courage to just ask, just put your pitch forward. And the worst case they can say is no. Yeah. But there's but there's billions of people in the world, and for me personally, it's almost the little selfish part is that I get to learn so much from these people, just interviewing them and getting all these different perspectives. And then I can filter that back to my clients too, because then I'm learning like a new way to approach things, or I'm learning a new way to look at things and be like, hey, I interviewed this person yesterday, and this is the wisdom they had to share. And I feel like it's really applicable for everyone. And it always falls in alignment, right? You'll be having an issue or having a problem, and then you'll interview somebody and you're like, oh, thank you for finding the solution for me. Or, thank you for talking about that, because that keeps coming up for people at the moment. So, that's the really beautiful thing that I've learned from that, because I've always been a really good speaker. I can always speak from the heart and I can always engage an audience, but this is like a different level. And then the other thing it's taught me as I've evolved is really good listening skills, like actually being fully present in the moment and listening to what the person has to say rather than trying to think about what I need to reply to them. So, applying like really deep and active listening makes the conversation flow, and it makes the person makes it them that they're heard and they can feel that coming through as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's your podcast is less than a year now. It's going to by August it will be a year, and you've established your presence as an authority in your space, and you've got to connect with a lot of interesting guests. And yeah. I like Podmatch because funny thing is that there are a lot of persons that I didn't even know who they were. I just saw their profile that they were experts in so thing, expert in maybe business or marketing. I'm like, yeah, I messaged them only for them to come on my podcast, and we started having a conversation. And he was like, I'm the CEO of Podfest. I was like, What? Seriously?
What?
Wow, I was like, but you know, me as I am, I have to compose myself, and I was like, oh, that's nice. But in my heart of heart, I was like, wow,
No.
you don't mean it. Yeah, but it
In
was
the
really nice.
in the back of your head, you're like, yeah, in the back of your head, you're having a fan person moment, right? You're like,
Yeah,
oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
But you have to maintain your steez, your composure. You have to say, yeah, no,
Yeah.
everything looks, yeah.
And then, yeah, and then sometimes you get the guests and you have to work so hard to get anything out of them. And you have to work like really, really
Ah,
hard to keep
yeah,
the conversation going.
yeah.
And, and you know, you ask these open-ended questions and you get a three-word response and you're like, okay, let's keep going. And then you end up like, and then you're like watching the time subconsciously because you're
Yeah,
like, all
yeah.
right, I'm working so hard. And I had a person like that a few weeks ago, and I just thought, why is this person in front of me? That was the question I was asking because it was so hard to get the conversation happening. It was so hard to get anything out of this person. And then she said something, and I went, I know exactly why you're in front of me. And we finished the interview, and I said, I know someone that's working on the exact same community project that you are. Can I connect you two together? So that is why I had to work so hard to get that. But now these two beautiful women are working to support people who've gone through trauma, and they're working together to help create a project on both sides of what they do. So, sometimes it's like, okay, I have to get through this for a reason, but it's always looking for the bigger picture and just being at the same time, I'm grateful that I can still have this conversation and there's a reason for it. There's a reason why there's something that I need to learn from this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I want us to talk about the money. Uh,
Money.
yeah,
What money?
yeah. What money? Yeah, in the fact that you have to ask what money means you know the money that I'm talking about.
What money?
Okay, okay.
Honestly, I get nothing for this at the moment.
Okay. Are you really sure? Sometimes
I'm really sure.
you cannot connect. Okay, how do I explain that? Sometimes you said coaching and you coach clients. Doesn't your podcast like kind of like establish you as an authority figure in your space, or the thing you coach your clients on, is it different from what you podcast about?
Yes and no. It's funny because so what I do is so I, how do I describe what I do? All right, I can get this. I'm like, I'm good at this elevator pitch. I know this. So I work with,
Okay, I'm not going to laugh. I'm not going to laugh.
can't even get it out. No, laugh at me by all means.
Okay,
We can laugh together.
okay.
Basically when I started my spiritual journey, this is why I kind of evolved. So I, was dabbling with all different ways to work with energy, with doing healing with people like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever it might be. And then I realized that I was actually coaching people because when you give people back their power and you can empower them, they are no longer in a victim mindset. They step into an empowerment mindset. And that is when you get true transformation and change. So I'd already started the podcast, and at the time I was just doing the intuitive healing work, and I didn't see how that was going to evolve and link together. But now I use it as a platform to promote, because I've got a soul business retreat coming up. So I use it to promote that. And then I've got these books coming out. So as soon as those books come out, then I'll be using it as a platform to promote my books as well, because then it's like, okay. And then as well, if you want to work with me, then those details are in the notes too. So I haven't quite seen how that's going to evolve yet, but I know it's coming, because the more, I get more people on, the more I keep sharing myself, the more I keep getting my message out into the world, then that's going to help allow that connection and keep allowing that podcast to build and become a source of income. And then hopefully at some point, then I'm part of a bigger network, and there can be a sponsor and there can be help in that regard.
We were talking about how you make
What
money
I do.
and all that,
Yeah.
and you told me it didn't exactly connect. But I know it's not exactly something you can tie directly, but it would be nice if you can cover your expenses from the podcast, the expenses money you spend on the podcast, you can
Yeah.
cover it from the podcast.
And the cool thing with joining Podmatch is that I've already made back my investment each month, which is really nice. Just coming, yeah. So because I interviewed so many people, I just got it back almost straight away. So I'm interested to see how that works this month. But and because I've been a guest as well, so it goes both ways. So it's been really in that regard, I was like, yeah, this was a really good investment. But in terms of, I love doing it. And because my intention changed behind doing it as well, it's supporting me on my journey as my identity shifts because we never stay the same. So, now I'm looking at, how can I collaborate with people so that when I get to the point of publishing my book, then it can be a bigger platform for that too. So, and the amount of people I meet who this book would be, they resonate so much with the book because the book's based on spiritual ethics, which in itself is an interesting conversation. But, because of, yeah, because of that, these people are like, oh, yeah, I'd be really open to looking into that. So it's, building that momentum, I guess, and building that suspense around like, yeah, it's coming, it's definitely coming, because I just sent it back to my editor again for the next round. And, it's just amazing seeing how that all evolves and how that's going to then slot in to my podcast. And I even had this idea where I'm like, I think I need someone to come on my podcast to interview me so I can share, because I don't like talking myself. I don't like talking to myself all the time. But if someone can come on and interview me, and then I can be on the flip side, and then we can go from there too. So it's like
Yeah,
all these ideas and possibilities. Yeah,
I'll be open for that. I'll just sit down and,
yeah,
look for some hot questions and put you on the hot seat. The seat will be very hot.
yeah. It can be hot seat with Catherine. So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll be asking the questions and I'll be laughing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too, so it's like watching, I'm not sure like if I'll keep this format or if it'll keep evolving, because that's the thing too. Like if your show can evolve with you as you grow as a person and your show can evolve with you, then that's so reflective, like you said, of the authority that you have with when you're sharing knowledge with people or when you're sharing, with your clients or whatever it might be. And it does have that flow effect as well.
At the end of the day, it's your podcast. You are the chef. At the end of the day, it's your own thing, and you can basically do whatever you want. Like I've seen different
Exactly.
podcast hosts, and they don't use their podcast to do different things that I never imagined that you could use a podcast for. And I'm like, wow. I mean, we are limited with our mind and what we think we can basically do with our podcast.
Yeah, I was doing this branding training just yesterday actually. And the biggest thing she said is the biggest untapped market is podcasts and podcast interview, and using that to get your message out there and using that to spread who you are, because you can share who you are, whether you have a podcast and it reflects your business, and you use it to support your business to grow, or you're going out there on podcasts and sharing your message and getting out to different audiences. So that, itself is like really a powerful thing to consider. And, and it's funny because so many people are like, oh, everyone has a podcast. It's like, yes, but do they have the conviction to keep it going? And what is the intention of starting the podcast? And will they keep it going? Because so many people, I've had friends start podcasts and they'll do one episode and that was it. Or they'll do like a handful and that was it. And I was like, well, was that a podcast? Like, or was that just like an experiment and it didn't
Uh,
sit with you and that's fine. But at the same time, if you want to do something, I'm one of these people like, if that's aligned with me, I'm going to commit, I'm going to keep going and see what happens. And, I get up because of the time differences in Australia. I'm up at some mornings at like 4 a.m. so I can interview people because I really want to hear their story and I want to hear their conversation. And, if they can't fit into the times I have, then at some point I will adjust a little bit if I really feel they'll align with the message I want to share with my audience. But if they're not going to jump with me, then I'm like, well, you can just find a time in June or in July or whenever the next one is then, So, it just, again, it's how people are meant to come to you and what the intention is behind that too.
I mean, with a podcast, you get to establish yourself as a thought leader. And one of the things most people don't know is that everybody wants to have the Joe Rogan type of podcast. Nobody really wants to go very, very, very niche. Like, I mean, the podcast I have right now and the podcast you have now, right now, as much as people consider it as a niche podcast, it's too broad because I imagine, for example, I saw there was a lady I spoke with, and she said she has a podcast that teaches female entrepreneurs how to podcast. And I was like, talk about being niche. Even podcasting itself, you can still go deeper and say, okay, I teach so and so persons how to podcast. And what happens is that the depth of value you can give is just way different.
Yeah, and that's like your branding is niching, and I find that really hard because I'm like, but I want to help everybody. But it's like, no, you can't. You're only one person. And that's why I feel, when I've fallen into this podcast role and now see it as a form of collaborating and connecting and creating networks, that for me feels more powerful because we can't all help everybody, or whoever's listening to this, it might gel with some people, but it might not. But at the same time, I have a really good memory. So I'll meet people and go, hey, I know someone I can connect you with, or I know someone that could help you with that, or I know someone that could do that with you. And that can be really powerful in itself. But then the niche ones, it's like, okay, well, you know your audience, you want to target your message. And I respect that too. So mine is like, hey, have you got a healing story to share? And is it going to fit in? So, I'm not going to lie. When I had one of my guests, he pitched to me and he was an actor. I'm like, you do know this is a podcast about, healing practices and a healing journey and mindset and all that sort of thing. He goes, I can definitely talk about that. And it ended up being one of my most favorite interviews I've ever done because the things he had to do to, as an actor, to keep going through getting told no again and again and again, and having that mindset and having, for him, he was meditating and using like falling back on martial arts because that was like his discipline practice, and all these things he had to do to actually get to where he was. It was amazing, like just listening to it and trusting his intuition, following his, and also the message he had about being valuable, like showing up and being a valuable member of a cast, and being a person of value no matter what, and seeing everybody there. And it was such a powerful message. And I was like, wow, if I just read this person from like, the general bio and not ask questions and being curious, I would have missed out on this amazing interview because you have to be open to that and ask questions. And don't get me wrong, I've had some people approach me and I'm like, nah, that doesn't resonate with me at all. And then I've been really open to other ones where I had someone come on to talk about AI and health and AI and humanity. And it was such a powerful conversation because everyone doesn't want Skynet, right? No one wants the Terminator version of the world happening. But at the same time, AI is here. And there are these beautiful people who are there who are trying to stronghold it and make sure that it doesn't end up like that. And it doesn't become, if you use it correctly, then it can create all these amazing things for you to create space so you can do other things as well. Like I use it to take notes in meetings so I don't have to sit there and worry about remembering everything the person's saying or typing it all. I was in a meeting on a platform that I couldn't record, and the person that was talking so fast, and I was the note taker, and I don't even know how I created this 6 pages. And even one of my my colleagues, she was like, I don't know how you did that. I said, I don't know either, but I have no idea what happened in that meeting. I was just too busy typing, so, it creates some sort of connection too. But again, it's all about being open to that and being curious and seeing how that can fit in with the message that you have to share, rather than being like, no, and just flat out no. Even my coach, he works a lot with mums and empowering women, and he's not a woman, but that's just where his niche is because he's really good at that, because he's been through his own journey of healing and repairing families and that sort of thing. But at the same time, if you just take it like for face value, you wouldn't think that, you'd be like, what are you doing working with women? But that's what he's good at.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's been a pleasure chatting with you for the past 1 hour. I wish this interview could go on long.
We have to get on with our life.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe in the future, I would love to have you back on the podcast. Let me know when you eventually switch to video. I'm hoping that will be soon. Yep. Let me know how it goes for you.
Will do. I definitely will. And thank you for letting me just talk to your wisdom. Appreciate it.
you have any questions from an insider regarding the Riverside, please, you don't hesitate to message me via my email or any, just so I can tell you some of the things nobody will tell you on the internet that, oh, Riverside is the best. I use Riverside. I know as much as it gets the job done. You know.
I
Thank
know,
you.
and I think that's with anything, right? That's just you got to take the good with the bad and weigh up what works for you and
Yeah,
what doesn't.
yeah. It's a question of which bad am I willing to tolerate. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh, thank you so much. Finally, what's within the next 30 to 60 seconds, what's one advice you wish someone told you when you started your podcast?
What's one advice I wish? I feel just the biggest thing is, which is what I ended up doing, was just trust your intuition and trust what feels right for you. You know, if you want to start a podcast, but actually have an intention behind it. Because if you're just going to go in willy nilly and not know, what you actually want to achieve, then it's not actually going to work for you. So if you can think, what's my intention of doing this? And it can change. Like I said, mine changed. But if you have that intention and that conviction, then you're gonna want to keep doing it, because if it's fun, if you have a great time, you're gonna want to keep doing it, because we're humans. We like fun things. We like having, things that light us up and bring us joy. But if it becomes like a drain on you and makes it really hard, then you're not going to want to do it. So, and do what feels right for you. If you want to do a pre-interview, do a pre-interview. If you don't want to do a pre-interview, don't do one. Don't let other people dictate to you how your podcast should feel and look, because it's going to be right for what's right for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Where can listeners learn more about you, check out your podcast, and kind of like sneak around?
Where? Yeah. So if you want to get all the latest releases really quickly, you can go to my Substack, which is willowhealing.substack.com, and it will come straight into your inbox every new episode, which is really cool. Otherwise, you can also find it on all the major podcasting platforms. So you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Overcast, wherever else it ends up. I'm not on YouTube yet because I don't have videos, but when I get to that point, then I might end up there too. So we'll see what happens. So check it out. So it's Willow Healing Matters soon.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
Thank you so much once again for it's been a pleasure chat.
Same to you, Wisdom. Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.